Hello everyone, I am the Mendicant Kirby. Welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews and other deck techs. On this episode of The Brewery, I'll be discussing my take on a commander from Aetherdrift, Mendicant Core Guidelight. If you like this deck or any of the cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel at no extra cost to you. But the very best way you can help out the channel is with my Patreon. There's plenty of perks for being a patron, such as early access to certain videos, exclusive deck techs, gifts, and more for as little as $1. You can also become a channel member for just 99 cents. Show off your support with the logo next to your name and exclusive emojis. Or you can always just support my channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing, which also helps out a lot. I put out a video every Monday, so you don't want to miss out. You can join my Discord server for free if you want to join the Commander Tavern community. All pertinent links are down in the description. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Mendicant is a star 3 artifact creature robot with start your engines for 1 white and 1 blue. That asterisk means that its power is equal to the number of artifacts you control, which gives you a potentially opponent-ending beater right in the command zone. Not only that, but once you have max speed, you can pay 1 generic extra when casting artifact spells in order to copy them. So not only is this an amazing Voltron commander, but also has the potential of doing even more with the artifacts we'll be playing with. To that end, the deck wants to be as fast and aggressive as possible, even its building over time incrementally. Brotherhood Vertibird, Cephalopod Sentry, Filigree Attendant, Guidelight Synergist, and Bronze Guardian have a similar ability to Mendicant in that their power is equal to the number of artifacts we control. The best part of the first 4 is that these have built-in evasion. Although not to be outdone, Bronze Guardian has double strike while also giving Ward 2 to all of our artifacts. Adaptive Omni Tool and Nettlecyst do something similar to whatever they're equipped to, which is great for any other evasive creature we can attach them to. As a bonus, the Omni Tool lets us filter through the top 6 cards of our library for an artifact whenever the equipped creature attacks, providing a form of card advantage. Clown Car Sharding Sphinx as Cyberman Squadron also help with the beatdown by creating more beaters. Granted, having Myriad means the tokens go away at combat, but we're still multiplying those beaters being sent to attack, which will not only pump the originals but the copies too. The Sphinx gets out of hand very quickly, making our variable power beaters even bigger. Clown Car is not only amazing to cast in this deck, but is also flavorful since the tokens are also robots. With the amount of cost reduction effects in the deck, the value of X becomes insane here, and it's even more busted if we manage to copy it. But more on mana acceleration later on. Mech Titan Core and Kappa Cannoneer are more fun beaters in the deck. The best thing about the Mech Titan is your imagination is the limit on how to use it, since you can also use it proactively. Let's say an opponent casts a board wipe, you can activate it in response to protect your 4 best vehicles and or artifact creatures, because when the board wipe resolves, killing the Mech Titan token, they'll all return to the battlefield. The Cannoneer becoming unblockable is absolutely devastating. This is why Rogue's Passage is included in the deck. There's no better evasion than being outright unblockable. Just watch opponents sweat once Mendicant has enough power to kill someone, while you have enough mana to activate this and to keep open for interaction. Amonkhet Raceway is another amazing land in the deck since it can give a creature haste for just tapping. Granted, we need max speed for that, but with so many ways to start our engines, we'll definitely get there. Lucio Clockwork Scholar makes it so we can swing in with total abandon. Having our attacking artifact creatures take no combat damage will definitely do a lot to keep them alive in combat. As a massive bonus, we also draw a card once per turn whenever an artifact creature enters our battlefield, but we'll see more reliable card advantage later on. Crypto Thrall and Darksteel Forge also provide protection, with the Forge going the extra mile of making our artifacts outright indestructible. Crypto Thrall helps with targeted effects like Exile and Tucking, which bypass indestructibility. And if we copied it with Mendicant, each one will protect the other two. Seal Overseer, Illustrious Wanderglyph, and Salvation Engine help further beef up our attackers. But more importantly, they're amazing for when we're creating all those artifact creature tokens. 1/1 Thopters and 1/1 Clown Robots and 1/1 Gnomes become quite dangerous when you're pumping them. Best of all, copying these with Mendicant makes it even easier to swing in for a game-ending Alpha Strike. Speaking of copying our artifacts, while this is an amazing ability for Mendicant, it's not necessarily something we can do from the get-go, nor whenever we want, since it depends on having max speed. To that end, we can't just keep a good card in our hand to save for when we can copy it. Fortunately, the deck is running Dowerport Mage, Crystal Shard, and Erratic Portal to bounce our best artifact creatures to hand. Not only can these be used as a protective effect, but once we have max speed, we can bounce our best artifact creatures to then recast them later on to get the token. While the Port Mage is the only one of these that is not an artifact, as a bonus we draw a card whenever a creature leaves our battlefield without dying. Master Transmuter and Drafna, founder of Latnam, also bounce things but are way better than the Port Mage. The transmuter essentially trades an artifact in your hand for one on the battlefield. So not only are we bouncing an artifact to later copy with Mendicant, but we can also cheat in a much more expensive artifact like Cyberman Squadron, Sharding Sphinx, etc. Drafta is also amazing here because you can bounce an artifact and also copy an artifact spell. Absolutely triple S tier card in this deck. Twinning Staff is included to make the most of what we're copying. Like I said, don't expect to be copying everything all the time, but when we do, we can get an extra copy for free. Even then, on its own, it's great because it can double copy our instants and sorceries for 7 mana and tapping. Plus, it's an artifact. As for how we're casting all these artifacts and building our board, we look out on the fact that most cost reducers are also artifacts themselves. The deck is running Ethereum Sculptor, Cloud Key, Foundry Inspector, Voyager Quick Welder, Joyous Familiar, Racer's Scoreboard, The Immortal Sun, and Michael Sith Golem. Naturally, we're choosing Artifact for Cloud Key. The Immortal Sun also has the added bonus of pumping our board, nerfing Planeswalkers, of which the deck has none, and drawing us an extra card each turn. It's a shame we can't copy it since it's legendary. But all the other artifacts here, they're fair game. Imagine controlling a bunch of these before casting Clown Car and the like. The deck is also running Archway of Innovation, which doesn't even take up a slot in the deck. It enters untapped and can tap for blue. We can then activate it to give our next spell Improvise. Absolute madness, especially when turning a bunch of cheap artifacts sideways to cast passive ones. On the topic of lands, Ancient Tomb, Arid Archway, Azorius Chancery, Guildless Commons, Miraganda Raceway, Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, and Temple of the False God are all included because they can tap for 2 mana. This might seem like an exaggeration, but they don't take up slots in the deck and can really add up since almost no one runs massive land destruction in Commander. Following on with land-based mana acceleration, the deck is still running Wayfarer's Bauble, Burnished Heart, and Navigation Orb, along with Soul Ring for the only mana rock. Artifact-based acceleration is still weak after all, but at least ramping for lands helps us out. So does reducing our costs until someone overloads Vandal Blast or chooses all modes for Farewell. Fortunately though, the deck is white-blue, so we're able to deal with the deck's weakness towards these types of opposing interaction. So naturally, the deck is running Fierce Guardianship, Counterspell, Dovin's Veto, Negate, and Permission Denied for counter magic, with Generous Gift, Stroke of Midnight, Unexplained Absence, and Witch Enchanter for single target removal. While these are pretty standard includes, of special note is Perilous Snare, since it also starts our engines. Not only that, but we get a nice bonus when we have max speed. Since our commander starts our engines pretty early, chances are that we can take immediate advantage of this. Best of all, it's also an artifact. But I'd be remiss if I didn't consider the counterspells to be the best ones to protect our board. Especially since the deck contains Ancient Den, Darksteel Citadel, Power Depot, Razortide Bridge, Scene of the Crime, Seat of the Synod, and Treasure Vault, which are all free ways of pumping our commander, as well as those other variable power artifact creatures. At least, the 2 that are already indestructible can survive most artifact hate and other board wipes. Although we could just let the board wipe resolve, but not before casting either Teferi's Protection and Clever Concealment in response. Since our board does have the potential of being full of tokens, these go a long way since tokens can't exile to return, but they can be phased out to then be phased back in. Lightning Greaves, Siffoot Boost, Champion's Helm, and Mithril Coat help protect our key creatures. Fortunately, the deck has plenty of redundancies, so we don't really even need to worry about keeping our commander around. And at 2 CMC, we can cast it plenty of times in a game. And Academy Ruins and Mystic Sanctuary are included anyways, which should need to recover anything, especially a much needed counterspell or something like that. And best of all, neither take up a slot in the deck. As for our own interaction, Cyclonic Rift, Aetherize, and Desynchronization provide somewhat one-sided board wipes since we'll have mostly historic non-land permanents in play, possibly more than our opponents for sure. Even so, you can't go wrong with Vanquish the Horde and Organic Extinction. The first one also hits us, but at least we can then cast it for cheap in a bind. Naturally, the second one is practically one-sided with this deck. Last but not least, Lion Sash is amazing against graveyard decks, and even then, just exiling cards every now and again still makes it incredibly useful, especially since the deck is all about swinging in with massive artifact creatures, so it performs doubly well here. Last but not least is how we expect to not run out of steam. Running out of gas would be pretty ironic with a deck based around one of the Gear Report Grand Prix's contestants. To that end, the deck is running Forensic Gadgeteer, Vidalcan Archmage, and Canoptic Spider. The Gadgeteer won't draw us cards outright, but it creates clues that we can later crack for a card. But while in play, they serve to pump our variable power beaters. As for the Archmage and Spider, they draw a ton of cards here, especially the Spider if we manage to copy it. Sicarian Infiltrator has a built-in way to copy itself via squad, which synergizes amazingly with the deck. Then we draw a card whenever it enters the battlefield. Keep in mind that squad is like Kicker, so it counts for the spell's casting cost. So if we control a ton of cost reduction effects, we can get a handful of squad costs taken care of for free. Research Thief requires us to do a bit of work since we have to connect with an artifact creature in order to draw a card. Fortunately, it's once per creature connecting and not once per opponent hit. So if we hit with 10 artifact creatures, we draw 10 cards. As a bonus, it's also an artifact. Esper Sentinel can draw us a card just by existing, and if equipped with either of the artifacts that pump it, we can change the question from do you pay the 1 to do you pay the 30. Avishkar Raceway and Fomori Vault don't take up slots in the deck while providing card advantage. The Raceway is a loot effect, but it's still nice to have on a land. The Vault, on the other hand, can let us filter super deep through our library. At that point, we're practically tutoring for whatever card we want at the cost of discarding a card to activate it. It doesn't even need to be an artifact, so we could get a counterspell in a pinch too. Speaking of lands, the rest of the deck is just the rest of the lands. The deck's running Hallowed Fountain, Meticulous Archive, Prairie Stream, Deserted Beach, Sea of Clouds, and Command Tower, as well as 4 of each basic land for the ramp effects in the deck. No fetch lands in this list. That's because a lot of the land slots were dedicated to the lands that can tap for 2 mana, along with all of the artifact lands. That being said, what I always say still remains ever true. As with all of my deck techs, you can build your mana base according to your budget. Whether you include more expensive cards or even cheaper cards is up to you. You do you. This brew is just an idea of how to build around Mendicant Core Guidelight. While this commander is open-ended enough where you can build it however you like, it's still clear that the focus is on artifacts. However, you can build it more reliant on artifact tokens in order to fill your board even faster with clues, food, blood, thopters, serval, treasures, etc. However, I took a more streamlined course via Beatdown while also protecting my board. It's not every day you can build such an aggressive deck in white-blue. If you're interested in the decklist of this spicy brew of mine, you can find a link to it down in the description. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the brewers, for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. I also want to thank any channel members. Your membership is greatly appreciated. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of the Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am the Mendicant Kirby, and happy brewing.